Okay, so today we're going to be covering 5.3, which is the basics of the coordinate plane. Now, in general, in a normal year, in a normal situation when we're not in a pandemic or pandemia or whatever you want to call it, as TikTok say, whatever you want to call it, it's been kind of crazy with math skills and any skills. So it's very hard for us to know what you do and do not know. So we threw this lesson in here just to make sure that everyone has the same knowledge of the basics of the coordinate plane. If you know some of it, that's great. If you don't, this is your time to learn it, okay? But you should have technically learned this in middle school or been exposed to it at some point in seeing it. But again, with COVID, we just don't know what has been given to you, okay? So if you feel like this is a really easy lesson, that's great. If you, like I said, if you've never heard it before, that's fine. That's not anything wrong with not hearing it before. All right, so let's first define what a coordinate plane is. Okay, coordinate plane is a two-dimensional or in other words, 2D. So the coordinate plane is a two-dimensional plane formed by the intersection of a vertical line and a horizontal line. So coordinate plane is a two-dimensional plane formed by the intersection of a vertical line and a horizontal line. What's something else you guys know about coordinate planes? Yep. There's numbers by the lines, correct? Yep.
Positives and negatives.
Positive and negative numbers, correct? Yeah. You can plot numbers on the coordinate plane. Good, good. We'll cover that today. Okay, good. In general, what does a coordinate plane kind of look like? Like if I showed you a picture of it, what would it look like? Good. Yep. Yep. It has little boxies. Yeah. So this is kind of what we would call a grid paper or graph paper. Okay. So it has little blue lines to kind of help you guide everything. Now there's no axes on these because you have to kind of make those on here yourself. Okay. But you could have graphs that are already done for you. So this is just a graph paper. This type of paper is really needed in like 10th grade math and algebra 2 because we do a lot of graphing in that point. In algebra 1, it's not necessarily as needed, and we have some if we need to at that point get you some of these. But know that in 10th grade, this paper will be like vital. You'll need graph paper all the time. And in science, sometimes when you get higher up too. So this paper is called grid paper, graph paper. I think it also sometimes is called filler paper. Yeah. And then it's called filler paper, and like quad paper. So if you want it, it's a pretty cheap buy, but it's not anything you guys really need. I'm just letting you know that there is that, it exists. Okay. So it kind of looks like little boxes, but we also talked about the vertical and horizontal line. Okay. When we're talking about the vertical and horizontal line, typically refer to those as axes. Does anyone know what letter axes represents what? Yep, Y or X. Which one's which? Yep.
Y-axis is down and up, and x-axis is left to right.
Good. So y-axis is our vertical line. And our x-axis is our horizontal line. Okay, and someone talked about earlier about plotting points, which remember we talked about, what unit was that? I can't remember, but when we did equations and we did systems of equations, okay, and your answer ended up being a coordinate point, okay? So you have X points and Y values. So that's where the X and Y axes come from. So typically we would draw a grid on graph paper, but for the sake of notes, we're just gonna kind of do a nice sketch. The problem, however, always is that it's kind of hard to be very consistent. Now do the best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect if you want. Okay, but the biggest thing obviously is that you don't have a grid to be very consistent, okay? When you do I was trying to find a piece of paper I had earlier. If you were to do a grid on a piece of graph paper like so, when you go to put your numbers on here, everything would be very consistent. You can, everything is already pre-spaced, everything like that. When you're on just normal lined paper, it's gonna be a little bit harder to be consistent. So the best I can say is just do the best you can on our notes. It doesn't have to be perfect. So just do the best you can to keep a very consistent spacing. And we'll go out 5. Right, and again, not perfect, but fairly consistent. Okay, so earlier we talked about the X and Y values and how they can be positive and they could be negative, okay? Where on this grid is my starting point? Yep, the middle, good. And what do we call that middle point? What do we call the middle point? Starts with an O. The origin, good. Okay. Which is a word you may have heard outside of math, like the origin story, the original story. That's where it comes from. Okay, what coordinate point represents the origin? If that's the starting point, where do we start at? 0. So my coordinate point would be parenthesis 0, 0, parenthesis. When we're looking at a coordinate point, which value is listed first? The X value, good. Therefore, the second one would be our Y value, good. Oh, we didn't label our axes here. So 9 times out of 10, you're just gonna see like a little X on the horizontal one and a little Y on the vertical one. Typically, it's just one set. Okay, good. So now let's talk about some points. So if I were to start a point, let's say the first point we're gonna look at is 3, 2. Okay, how do I know how to get to 3, 2? What's the process I should go through? Yep.
You go right 3
From where?
from the origin.
So we start at the origin, step 1, yeah. And then we're gonna go what?
3 steps, so 3 lines.
3 lines, 3 up.
3 down, like to the right.
Why do I go right?
Because I go close.
Good. Okay, I'm just asking you questions to make sure we're all clear. So we start at the origin. Okay, first you're gonna go left and right to go your X value, because X is first, and X is your horizontal line. That's why you're gonna go left and right first. So I said the point 3, 2. So I'm gonna go to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we didn't put numbers on here, guys. What the heck? I'm getting ahead of myself, guys. So we need to put numbers on here. Okay, so to the right is positive. What's gonna be to the left? Negative numbers. And above us is going to be positive numbers, and below would be negative. There's that. Sorry. We talked about it. We just didn't write it down. Yes. Yes, you need to write the numbers. What do you mean? Like above or below? Typically you'll see them below the X and to the right of the Y, but it's not necessarily wrong to put it above. It's just normally you'll always see them below or to the right. Typically, if there's axes already pre-numbered, they're typically below X and to the right of Y. But technically you could write to the left and above. All right. So yes, good clarification. It doesn't necessarily matter, but 9 times out of 10, you're gonna see them below on the X-axis. Okay, so we said 3, 2. Let's get back to that problem now. So we're gonna go to the right 3, and then positive 2 means we're gonna go up 2. So we're gonna place a little point there. Okay, just make it enough to where it's identifiable, but not like large enough to be like a giant like zit on your paper, like just a small little point. Okay, doesn't have to be a giant circle. Okay, and then we're gonna label it. Okay, when we say label, it means 2 different things. The first option is just labeling the point that you are identifying. So it's 3, 2. Okay, parenthesis 3, comma 2, parenthesis. Okay. What about if I told you to plot -6, -2? Where would that go? Plot it on your paper. -6, -2. Where's that going? Bottom left. Good. Oh, we didn't draw a 6th one. There we go. -6, -2. Good. The what? The boxes? Like on grid paper? Oh, the quadrants. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in a sec. Okay, let's do some more practicing. How about 4, -3? Plot that point. 4, -3. Okay, show your paper to your neighbor. See if they plot 4, -3 correctly. You can talk to a new neighbor and a new friend. We do have a lot of absences, so talk to someone. Or yourself if you feel more comfortable talking to yourself. But it's kind of hard to check yourself if you're talking to yourself. Okay, so 4, -3 should be in what part? Use directions, yeah. Bottom right, good. So 4, -3. Okay, last one, -4, 5. -4, 5. -4, +5. Right, show to a neighbor. -4, 5. You okay? Okay, next one. Where should this one be? -4, 5, over -4, up 5. Okay, I will challenge you to just make sure that you're always saying left, right, up, down versus over. I know what you meant when you said over -4, but just to be clear, you gotta say left, right, up or down, okay? Okay, so now that we've practiced plotting some points, let's talk about where the quadrants are. Raise your hand if you recognize the phrase quadrants. Okay, good. You may have heard it in science as well. Okay, so quadrants, all right over here. Okay, quadrants are essentially just a way to pinpoint where the information is. Okay, there's nothing really super fancy about quadrants. It's more or less just saying, oh, that's in quadrant 1. So then you know to look to quadrant 1, or that's in quadrant 5, 6, whatever they may be. Now, we don't have that many quadrants, but who thinks they remember where each quadrant is? Iris. You had 2 of those correct. Yeah.
Oh, top right is 1. Top left is 2. Bottom left is 3, and bottom right is 4.
Correct. Just remember that it always starts with positive, positive. So the way that I always teach my kids to remember is it starts with positive, positive, and it goes clockwise, which does require you to know that it goes counterclockwise from there. So it does require you to know which way the clock goes, but starts at 1 and goes left. Starts there, works its way around. Like you're making a C. Oh, that makes. I mean, I'm trying to help you out. Okay. So and you don't have to plot this point, okay? But if I gave you the point -3, 4, what quadrant would it be in? Quadrant the point -3, 4. Quadrant 2, good. What about if I gave you the point 2, -5? 4, good. Okay, and no one asked about this, but this is a Roman numeral 4. Okay, if you've not been exposed to Roman numerals, anytime you get a 4 or a 9, the number will put a 1 in front of whatever the sign is. So the sign for 5 is a V. So to do a 4, it's 1, 5, which means 1 minus 5, or 5 minus 1 to get the 4. Okay, so it's basically saying it's 1 before the 5. Well, before calculators, they had to use symbols for things. So, all right, any questions about the quadrants? Like I said, there's nothing incredibly fancy that you need to know about quadrants at this point. It's really more or less just identifying where in the graph it is, okay? All right, last thing we're gonna talk about is rise and run. Rise and run. Raise your hand if you recognize rise and run. I heard in science today, you guys were, what? Probably, okay. What does it mean to rise? Yep. So rise can be up and it also could mean down technically, okay? But think of sunrise, the sun comes up. Okay, and then run, typically you run left or right. You don't typically run up or down. Unless you drink Red Bull and have wings, you're not flying up or running up. Running left or right. When we mean up, we don't mean like literally straight up. So you can't run vertically. All right, so rise over run. So rise over run is a scenario in which we talk about how to go from one point to another point. And this is a concept that we're going to talk about in this unit and the next unit. And we're going to develop what it means, how we use it. And there's also different terms for how we use this, okay? But rise and run are the most basics form of that. And then the next lesson, next week, we'll talk more about what that means and how that incorporates with what we've already learned, okay? And what we will soon learn. So, question I'm going to ask you, okay, is, or the instructions, we are going to plot the point with a rise of 2 and the run of -6 from 4, -3. Label the point A. Sorry, that was kind of down there. Okay, so we're going to plot the point with a rise of 2 and a run of -6 from the point 4, -3, and we're going to label it point A. Question, concern, answer.
Question.
Yeah.
So in 4, and -3, but we're
Kind of. So you asked if it's the origin point. It's not really, I don't want you to say the origin point because I don't want you to get confused with 0, 0.
Oh.
It's just the point in which you're going to go from.
okay.
Okay. So I knew what you were meaning by that. So don't call it the origin point because I don't want you to get confused with this, but it's the starting point. Okay. So before you do your rise or run, you're going to start from that point. Okay. So we're going to look at this point, 4, -3 right here. And we're going to rise 2. So what does that mean? We're going to go what direction? Up 2. Now you can just use the end of your pencil. Don't mark anything. Just use it as a guide to count up and down. So we're going to go up 2. We're going to go 1, 2. So what Y value am I at now? -1. Good. But now I still need to run. So I don't want to mark anything yet. Okay. I still got to run. I'm running -6. So what direction am I going then? Left. Good. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Do I count this line? Yes. 4, 5, 6. And we're going to label that point A. What coordinate point did we end up at? -2, -1. Good. Okay, so that makes sense how we did that? Okay, so again, you don't have to mark anything until you hit that final point. So again, we go from here and we do the rise first. So we go up 2, and then we ran -6. It is important that you count the axes, because what number is considered the axes? What number is that? Not 1, it's 0. Remember, this is 0, 0. So technically this is a number. We don't want to skip from 1 to -1. Okay, so we go 1, 0, -1. So always make sure you count the axes if it has to go past it. All right, I'm going to write down question 2 and see what you did with that one. Same scenario, different numbers, just like every other math question. I give you multiple problems, just new numbers. Plot the point with a rise of -3 and a run of 5 from -4, 5. Label the point B. Let me move that piece of paper so it's easier. Plot the point with a rise of -3 and a run of 5 from -4, 5. Label the point B. Yep, question. Say that again? No, if it's negative, you would go down. So that's a great question. So if we're referring to negative numbers, that would be down or left. Okay, great question. All right, check with seminary what you got. Other side. Other side. Other side of your head. Yeah. There was like a piece of white paper on it.
Oh.
Iris. Okay, give you about 5 more seconds, then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about number 2. Let's talk about number 2 real quick. So if we could silence everyone real quick so we can talk. Okay, everyone focus up here. So we're going from point -4, 5. So that's up here, which you can't see with my paper. Hold on. Okay, -4, 5. And we're gonna rise -3. So that was a great question. If you're rising, can you really rise a negative number? No. So rising, remember, means up or down. So if it's negative, that's down. So we're gonna go down 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we're gonna run 5. So run 5 would be positive 5 to the right 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we end up here at point B, which ends up with a value of 1, 2. How did we do for question 2? Questions or concerns? Okay. Last one, point number 3. Same setup. This time we have a rise of -2 and a run of -1 from the point 3, 2. Label it point C. Okay, check with someone near you. All right, check with the group next to your group. See if you guys have a confirming answers. So check a different pair, see if you guys have the same answer. All right, who believes they have the correct answer for number 3? Iris? I'm not saying it's wrong, or just there's other hands up, so yeah. 0, 0. 2, 0.
Well, we did, well, there was.
1, 1. 0, 2. Okay, so I heard 0, 2, I heard 2, 0, I heard 0, 0, and I heard 1, 1. So let's see what happens. So we are from point 3, 2. Let's stop. I'm trying to show you the thing and the question. So, okay, 3, 2. We're gonna rise -2. So that means we're gonna go down 2. Boom, boom. Okay. And then we're gonna run -1. So we end up here. Okay. This is the point C. What is the correct way we would number that coordinate point? So X, guys, if we could please stop that in the back. What should be my coordinate point? 2, 0, 0, 2. 2, 0. Remember, X is your first value, so you would have gone to the right 2, but 0 would be your Y because you didn't go up or down. All right, do we understand why it's 2, 0 and not 0, 2? Do we understand where or why it's where it is? Why where it is? Do we understand that it should be at that point at least? Okay, so let's clarify why we know it's 2, 0 versus 0, 2. Remember that your values are always X, then Y. So if you're starting from the origin, okay, in order to get to point C, you would have had to go to the right 2, which would mean your first value is 2, and then you didn't go up or down. So that means your Y value is 0 because you stayed there. So 2, 0. Does that make more sense? A little bit clearer? Okay, good. All right, any final questions or concerns? Okay, great. Homework time it is.